What's going on? Move the mouse back in Rockdale 2.0, and you'll hopefully recall what we did in the last episode, which is kind of build up the highway and an exit, and we kind of laid out a grid and some footpaths. I believe I filled in this other area to the left after last episode and got this connected, but this is not really a let's play. We're not going to do everything step by step. We're going to really dive in and talk about the theory of building up these areas, but this was kind of the first neighborhood I wanted to focus on, and then I just kind of started to flesh out this idea over here. But let's pretend this is not here for today's episode. This is where we're going to work on. And this is one thing that I want to do differently with Rockdale that I've seen a lot of other creators do, where they just kind of build purely with aesthetics in mind. I like building with the game in mind. Basically, you know, playing the systems within the game. So right now we've got a lot of residential demand. I've started to zone off a few blocks here. Right now, the commercial that we have move in, I've actually got this set to the lower density commercial to start, because it will be a spectacular fail, and we can try. Let's do it. Let's try. Worst case, it doesn't work out, we can go back to low density. Now, before we get started moving people in, it's a good idea to look at our policies first citywide. So we have things like high-tech housing, encourage biking, filter industrial waste, smoke detector distribution, of course, recycling and recycle plastic, education boost, because we're really going to push to have higher educated citizens, lots and lots of office jobs and industry 4.0 jobs, and we've legalized recreational use here because it should be. So that's citywide policies, but what about within a specific district? There's actually something that I want to do to quite a few of the districts, and that's under city planning, high-rise ban. So that policy will just apply to Riverside for right now. We don't want to do it citywide, but as we move people in, we want to prevent high-rises and fully upgraded buildings everywhere except kind of in the major city center that I'm kind of planning for over there, or maybe kind of the circular city over here. But that should let us get started. So let's go ahead and have our first citizens move in here. So we've got high-tech housing and high-rise ban on these residential areas. Now we don't have any power, and I haven't really done a utility area, it occurs to me. So maybe we weren't ready to have people moving in. So we'll build a canal real quick and slap our water structures to that. Get started here. Also keeps it nice and hidden unless you're kind of looking directly at it. Now, considering we are building primarily on a grid, we're going to use the grid that we've already set up to kind of help us outline our water network. And if you've been here before, you probably know $440 worth of pipe between two parallel pipes creates this nice perfect overlap. So since we're going to be extending this quite a bit as we go, I don't feel like building it all out right now, we'll just start with a basic grid that covers this first part of the city that we're moving people into. Now, we could kind of keep building and keep expanding, but I kind of want to also have the city function in-game the way it's supposed to. So we'll be kind of supporting it with different services, building up the neighborhoods, and generally growing the city organically for the most part. Even though we're kind of cheating our way there with the things like the unlimited money, it's still going to give us kind of I think more of the feel of the game rather than just simply plopping everything down. So we'll kind of zone out this build for the most part, and then we'll drop in some custom structures and tweak some things towards the end. So now that we've got power and water all hooked up, now we're ready to have people start moving in. Now this might be a good time to grab that same cinematic sweep that we saw in the last episode and grab a shot of that as our first buildings start to pop into view. But we'll be able to come back to this and sort of see this section of the city grow throughout the episode, and we'll keep coming back to those in order to do that. Now, although I've got industrial areas planned out, I think it makes more sense to meet the demand with office for the time being. Even though it won't be well populated, eventually people will get there. So we're going to commit that to office space right now just to meet some of that industrial demand. I might have to check the water over there. Yeah. All this traffic pouring into the city for the first time. This will definitely not be a continuous flow like this. What Oh, they're all parking there? Okay. That's interesting. You're gonna park and walk? I appreciate it. Although we should at some point probably make this a no parking street if we're gonna make it feel a little bit more like a highway coming through here. Now we start to get the complaints because we haven't covered these basic services that are available this early on. So I want to provide good coverage for kind of each of these areas. And it looks like we'll be able to support this area really well with a firehouse and police house. And maybe even into the next area. So, you know, if we had another one over here, they might be able to respond to the edge of this one faster depending on traffic and vice versa. So we'll kind of reserve these middle blocks, I think, for kind of the city service type things. If we're going to overwrite anything, I think that makes sense to do that. And then we'll do the same thing with maybe a police station down here. Same block, but we're preserving the footpaths when we do that. So that covers that. Let's get a hospital in down here also. Maybe this could be a little different. This could be right there. I think that works. We'll eventually flatten this lot out. File that under fix it later, where we can kind of flatten this before we drop it and have a little bit more of a ridge down here. But since this is more of kind of a back access road that right now is only coming over to our power plant, you know, we could get maybe a couple industry buildings or something back here. It's a little different. In fact, what if we did that? Is that going to pollute the hospital? We'll come back to that. We'll come back to that. So we've got police, fire, and health coverage. We also want to think about education early on because we're building a big city, and at least the one that I have in my mind is going to be a lot more office space than zoned industry. So if that's the case, we want to focus on education early and often and make sure that we're covering not just capacity, right? Because you have eligible versus capacity. So you could make your capacity way into the green citywide, but it's not necessarily easy to see without coming into the info views where people are educated, where they're not, because they may, you know, there may be capacity, but it may not be near them. So we're going to drop in schools kind of as we go and make sure that, you know, everybody that's moved in is supported and this zone is really kind of filled out before I kind of move into building the next zone. So not that I'm going to kind of show you that every episode, but I wanted to show you this process of let's treat this neighborhood like its own little city. We'll build it up with all the services that it needs before we start to expand out to other regions. And that's just going to make it easier to support the city overall and not have to come in and micromanage as much as if we know that, hey, we're done with this section and it's got all the things that it needs. We can go to the next area and focus on that and kind of let this kind of keep raking in the tax revenue, but with unlimited money, we don't really care about that. Now you may have just one elementary school, or if you have the Green Cities DLC, you'll have the community school as an option. And if you're on PC, there's all kinds of mods you can get. Now the thing here is the standard school has capacity for 300 students. The community school, better on the environment, but more expensive to upkeep, less student capacity, so you're paying a price to go green. But on the modding front, we can grab something like the Central Elementary School, and this will actually hold 1,000 students. So if that will fit on this block, here's what I'm thinking we do is kind of maybe plop it in the middle of this block, because then we only have to break that middle footpath, which people could walk around. But that would be really well, central, and it is the Central Elementary. So we just want to make sure that we don't zone right here, because you don't want these tiny little businesses or houses cropping up right next to the school. That wouldn't make a lot of sense. As far as high schools, I kind of like this asset right here. This is a custom one I've downloaded from the workshop. I will publish a collection at some point, but for right now, assume that everything in the Portsmouth collection from my previous series still applies here, but I will put a link to that in the description. But this is a massive physical building. but more realistic, honestly, in terms of high schools, at least that, I see in North America, in larger towns and cities. This is this supports 2,000, so this is a little bit better than we can do with the built-in assets, which are 1,800 for the default and the Green Cities variants. So this gives us a ton of capacity. All these offices are complaining that there's not enough workers. We know that because people haven't really finished moving in. They are already dying. Has it been that long already? So let's get a cemetery in there. And I think we can get these. Yeah, we can. We can kind of get these in the middle of these neighborhoods. So maybe we could tweak this block a little bit here. We'll do that. And then we'll come back into the... just provide cemetery coverage and clean up our sidewalks a little bit there. We could even, if we wanted to go heavy on city services and not have to come in here. Oh, it's a 3. I was thinking we could cram crematoriums in there, but maybe not. We'll let that be. Budget wise, since we're not too worried about things from a money perspective, we could drop our taxes all the way down. It will only potentially help our growth. Budget wise, we can crank these up too when we need to, because we want to send, in this case, more hearses to go pick up the bodies. The other thing that we need to deal with is trash. So for that one, I think it only makes sense to do a recycling plant. Now for this, I'm going to plop some city services down over here for now. But this will actually probably go, I'm thinking maybe over here. Might make sense to kind of break off a little industrial city service for things like dumps and power and get that away from the water. But we'll do this for now, just because we've built up over here. So that'll start picking up garbage. We'll eventually get these problems sorted out once there's more people in our town. But as you can see here, the commercial buildings just absolutely fail because they're not designed to support this small of a population on this little commercial zone. So we'll change this down the road. But let's make something that is a little more viable for a smaller population. The apartment buildings don't seem to matter as much. Those can handle it just fine. Those just need a resident to not be abandoned. But these smaller businesses will just do much better in this this part of town until it gets more populous. Whoa! Remember those offices? Do we not build footpaths in back here? Probably should have done that. So offices are another tough one. There's a reason that you unlock these things later on in your playthrough, because they need more people. They're bigger businesses. And yeah, they get abandoned like crazy, unfortunately. And now we have no industrial demand. So we'll build things up a little bit different, because that's not necessarily going to be successful in the long run. We'll probably make one of the next neighborhoods that we work on maybe like an industrial park. I think I want to do this as like a pocket of high-rise residential, or not high-rise band, high-density residential over here. And then sort of sweep down, into the suburbs over here. Kind of build that up a bit, and then bring the terrain up a little bit around here so that there's a kind of a more natural barrier to where the edge of our town might be. Just thinking ahead. Again, we're really just kind of, what I wanted to talk about today was playing the game. And I know it's kind of a weird concept, right? But if you're trying to build up these massive cities in in any kind of a creative mode, especially, it's very easy to get ahead of yourself. So, you know, don't be afraid to grow the city a little slower. Like you may notice I have a ton of residential demand right now, and that's one of the reasons why we don't have any industrial demand, is because, hey, everybody's got a job. They don't need work. So we'll move a couple blocks in at a time. We'll keep expanding kind of the commercial coverage, I think, down along this strip to start. So we could tuck a business in there on either side. We'll come all the way down the street there. Since we don't have any of the demand right now, let's make a little commercial area right there. So we'll turn that into like a little mini mall park. Again, we can kind of come in and place individual buildings if we wanted to. In the continuing tradition of wanting to make this city very walkable, I should have done this before moving businesses in, but that's okay. That one's a little off center because it was the cemetery. We had to move those footpaths around, so I'm not lining up based on the rest of the grid. We do see people already moving around on foot, so that is our first mass transport option, is people using their feet. That's awesome to see them kind of walking all the way over there. Normally, I think you'd see, if you didn't have those footpaths and they couldn't, you know, kind of zigzag and cut where they want to go faster, they'd be much more prone to get into their cars. So making a really walkable city, I think, is going to make this kind of have a fun modern grid feel. Like, you know, I really want to overthink the grid and snap it in different areas into the modern city center. Let's see. I want to stay on top of this zoning today, though, too, because I am interested to see, like, how many. When are we going to stop? When we start having education problems? How many people can we support with, you know, this setup of schools here? We're definitely going to set ourselves up for a death wave here, unfortunately, because we're moving so many people in so fast. But maybe what we could do over here is kind of make this a little bit more commercial heavy of an area, because it looks like we're going to have that need more. We'll zone along this street. Now, can people U-turn up here? They can't. So that's actually a little tricky. They would have to go on the highway. Yeah, they'd have to go all the way up the highway there to turn back around. So we've got to fix that. There's got to be a way to turn around here. We could just do that real quick with the one-way. We'll do that right before the highway there. So if people need to turn around, there's an option. I suspect we'll see some people using that sooner than later. So I think definitely along the main street, right, we want some commercial. Little commercial businesses here. But then I thought what we also could do is kind of cut out a piece of this. So we'll kind of zone over here. This pocket somewhere around here, kind of be all commercial businesses. Maybe another little residential pocket tucked in there, kind of over by the highway. But that'll be a good start to our city, kind of with all this in mind. The other thing that we might do is I was thinking about, you know, as the city grows, these two roads you see running left to right. So Robert Street and Scott Street here. This might actually be a good idea to have like a one-way loop so that traffic kind of comes in, could carry through this way, could go that way. And, you know, you'll get to the side streets, but it might help flow a little bit as this starts to get really, really populated. We'll see, though. And I think what we could do is pollute our water flow a little bit. But I think we're going to need to meet industry demand over here. I don't think there's a way we're going to avoid it when we first build the town up. So I've got to figure out some pockets here or there where ultimately we're going to have some industry. We might have to do like a temporary placeholder though, just so that, you know, if we have jobs, then people will be able to have places to work, and they'll want to move more people in. So maybe we'll do industrial over here, and we can always roll this back, right? This isn't built for handling lots of traffic coming through here. So come to think of it, that's a terrible idea. It's a terrible idea. Okay, we're not going to do that. No, we're going to watch offices flop and fail, and we're totally fine with that. And in fact, we could even pad kind of the middle of our zone with office space where we needed to meet that industrial demand. Oh, you know what? The other thing is, while we're at it, totally temporary, because we'll eventually want to build our own fancy university, but we want people to be educated. That's a big thing. If we're gonna commit to office, we got to do it. So let's do that. I'm gonna kind of just let it play on 3x speed for a little while. So let's take a look at where we're at, and then I'm gonna kind of just let it play and fill out the zoning and services as we need. I'm really going to focus here on just growing out Riverside. It looks like these businesses didn't go away after they moved in, so let's get them out of there because they don't need to be in there. So yeah, let me zone and I'll show you kind of what this looks like on the other side. All right, so I went a little crazy building offline, but that's exactly what this series is about. So I'm really focusing on building up all the zoning we can here. Riverside and Sunnyside are pretty much mirror images of each other, just with some grid work. I started to build in some space down here in the bottom right for office. I'm gonna do the same thing over here. So I think in the next episode, what we'll do is come up with an industrial area, because although office is fun, at some point we've got to do some other things with industry, and it might be good to spin up a little industry area, get some ports and train going. There's so much to do, but in each episode I kind of want to focus on these little parts of the build. And you know, the first was about building the skeleton of that first couple neighborhoods. This was all about kind of zoning things off, moving some people in, and again, just treating it as its own little mini city. So I've been letting this play at 3x speed for quite a while, and just kind of coming back to it and seeing what the city needs. Right now it looks like we need actually some sewage treatment, but little things like that, right? Just making the city kind of self-sufficient, building it up as we go naturally and organically, and just making sure that we have all the services and the things that we need, that people aren't complaining about stuff. Over here, actually, we could focus in on a couple things. So fire coverage, definitely a little light. It looks like I had the large stations of both on the other side, so probably time to drop those in over here. Especially on the fire coverage, right? Whoa, laggy. Alright, I should probably save my game too soon. So we've got that. We could probably do another hospital over here, right? And I already dropped another cemetery, high school, elementary. Yeah, I did all that. Okay. Just making sure. We'll do that, which is going to break our footpaths. I'm just going to fix that real quick. Oh, I didn't have a footpath through here. That's good. I might have slacked on those a little bit. Let's come here with that. We'll dezone that little block right there, because that's kind of silly, like all those are. So yeah, in terms of building the city up, again, it's gonna work in game. That's one of the things I really want to do. Got all these kind of footpaths over here, and I was gonna zone another street. There was another street coming through here, but this high school is so massive that it just didn't have room. So we'll maybe do some park objects or something like that up here. I've also been dropping in, where I can every once in a while, some of our fall tree brush from Portsmouth to give the city some extra life. Because it's going to be a very dense urban environment, and just even a little bit... Whoop! Did we just... Oh, I thought we had a fire there for a second. Not yet. But yeah, that gives it kind of even just that little touch, right, of color. Really makes it pop. So we'll fill in some of these areas where we can for that. Do we not zone over here? Didn't line this up exactly symmetrical, so that's okay though. I still have to come back in and clean these up. I did say on the next episode that we would do that, so maybe let's do that real quick. Let's talk about the Align Slope tool and Move It, which confused me for so long. So I totally understand if it's confusing to you. So let's say, for example, that we want to make this slope right here smooth all the way up to over there. So right now you got this really quick abrupt jump, and then, you know, kind of levels out right there. So we've wanted that to be a little bit slower. And maybe what we'll do is we'll pick a point here, kind of where that flattens out. So let's go into Move It. We're going to pick the nodes that we want to move, what we want to be part of that aligned slope. So we don't want to move the actual end of it. It's everything in the middle that we want to move. So we'll grab that node, we'll grab this node, because I forgot that one last time. And that's good for right there. So what we want to do is we want to come down to Move It and expand down here. We want to say Align Slope, and we're going to go from one side to the other, and that smooths everything out, so you get a much smoother slope coming up. Now this is really tall up here. We could in turn smooth this up. We'll just manually move that one down just a little bit. Still a bit of a ramp there, but we can make things look a little bit smoother in the process. But that tool just, yeah, it really confused me. So where else do we need to modify? Did I fix that one over here? I think I did. So for example, this one on the other side is still pretty steep. So we'll grab not the end, but everything in the middle that we want to move. So like that. And then we'll say Align Slope from here to here. And that did kind of drop this one on the other side, but that's okay. We'll come in and kind of smooth it all out at some point. But that's how to use the Align Slope tool. I did say I was going to talk about this episode, so there you go. Hopefully you're enjoying the return to Rockdale, or the reimagination of Rockdale, really. This is a very different series for me, where I'm just talking more about the build than actually showing you the step-by-step. I want to show you how, you know, I'm kind of thinking this city out. It doesn't mean that it's right, it doesn't mean that it's for you, but hopefully it gives you some ideas, sparks some creativity, and hopefully you're enjoying the ride. So if you are, likes, comments, and shares all help the channel a lot and are greatly appreciated. Subscribe if you're new, and consider hitting the bell to get updates in this and other series. Follow me on Twitter and join the Discord if you want to get involved in the discussion. Links in the description down below. Also, if you'd like to support the channel, links to that also in the description. Check back on Mondays and Fridays for Let's Plays. Currently doing the City of Grand Lakes, University-focused build on console. Wednesdays do something a little bit different, and sometimes that will be updates to Rockdale, so check back for these. But until the next one, this is Move the Mouse, signing off.